Court of Appeal quashes summons on Gotabaya Rajapaksa over Lalit Kugan cases. Pillayan granted bail in Pararajasingham murder. Opposition questions about appointments made to the Public Service Commission in Parliament. Residents in Mihidusenpura hold protest amidst COVID-19. Former President denies statement made about collective responsibility of the April 21st attacks. Google, Twitter and Facebook threaten to leave Pakistan over new content rules.
Good evening and welcome to Primetime News on TV1 for the Newsfirst Mazra Hassan with our sign language interpreter Brian D. Cruz joining us via Zoom. On to our lead story now. The Court of Appeal quashed the summons issued by Jaffna Magistrates Court on President Gotabaya Rajapaksa as former Secretary of Defence to provide evidence for a habeas corpus inquiry into the 2011 disappearance of two activists Lalit Kumar Viraraj and Kugan Muruganandan.
The Jaffna Magistrates Court issued summons several months ahead of the presidential election. President of the Court of Appeal AHMB Nawaz and Justice Sobhita Rajakaruna issued an order to quash the summons while delivering the verdict on the petition filed by Gotabaya Rajapaksa against the summons. The bench of the Court of Appeal pointed out that a magistrate has the legal right to summon witnesses for a case or an inquiry. However, the witness must be informed clearly as to why he is being summoned. The bench of the Court of Appeal said though Gotabaya Rajapaksa was summoned with regard to the 2011 disappearances as he served as Secretary of Defence at the time, the court had focused its attention on the detail that facts were not mentioned in a proper manner and therefore decided to quash the summons issued by the learned magistrate.
Former Chief Minister of the Eastern Province parliamentarian Sivanesature Chandrakanthan alias Pillayan and 4 others were released on bail today.
The 5 suspects, including parliamentarian Sivanesature Chandrakanthan, were granted bail by the Batticaloa High Court in the case filed over the 2005 killing of former parliamentarian Joseph Pararajasingham. Chandrakanthan, who was arrested on the 11th of October 2015 in Batticaloa, was in remand prison until today.
MP of the Samagi Jana Balawege, Nalin Bandara, expressed these views in Parliament today.
I received a message now informing me that Chandrakanthan alias Pillayan has been released on bail. Cases pertaining to VVIPs are being taken up at courts as present. Court verdicts were given for several VVIP cases, including the case involving Lalit Wiratunga and Anusha Palpita.
VVIP nadu මේ කොහොමද වෙන්නේ? ගරු මන්ත්‍රීතුමා ඔබතුමා සඳහන් කරා පිල්ලයන් මන්ත්‍රීතුමාට අපදීම සම්බන්ධයෙන් අවුරුදු 5ක් නඩු අහා අපදෙන්න.
With regard to our inquiry on MP Pillayan's release, Pillayan was in remand for 5 years without being released on bail. We are well aware as to how the former government filed cases against others. I will reveal how your faction filed a case against Janaka Bandara Tennakon.
මං කියන්නම් එක සිද්ධියට නඩු දෙකක් තියෙනවා. අනේ අපේ දලදා මාලිගාව බෝම්බ ගාලා විනාශ කර.
Ruling MPs are appearing on behalf of those who bombed the temple of the sacred Tooth Relic and massacred monks in Arantalava. Our question was, how can Pillayan be released on bail while courts are closed? Your statement is irrelevant.
වහලා තියලා තියෙද්දි පිල්ලයන්ට අප දුන්නා කියලා මම ගරු හිටපු අධිකරණ අමාත්‍යතුමිය කිව්වේ. මේ මොකද්ද කියන්නේ? මේ වෙන කතන්දරයක්.
These were the views expressed by Justice Minister, President's Counsel Ali Sabri in Parliament yesterday.
මම පෞද්ගලිකව ජනාධිපතිතුමා වෙනුවෙන්
I have appeared on behalf of the President for about 35 cases in a personal capacity. Multiple cases were filed against him. People were set up to blame Gotabaya Rajapaksa for incidents that were irrelevant to him. They were promised to be released from their charges. We have plenty of affidavits. cases were filed against the Prime Minister Namal Rajapaksa and Basil Rajapaksa. They caused trouble to Chamal Rajapaksa as well. I know about these cases since I appeared for them in court. Now the opposition is talking about judicial independence and pointing out that some individuals are being acquitted. If cases are filed against anyone in court based on political motives and without any facts, ultimately they will be released. Nothing is surprising in that. They will either be released in the court that is hearing the case or by the appeal court. The recent verdicts have been issued by some judges appointed under the previous administration. They are independent judges. In the future, you will witness the country's best judges and reputed lawyers being appointed to the Court of Appeal.
විනිශ්චයකාරවරු සහ කීර්තිමත් වෙනත් නීතිඥවරු.
MP Ranjan Ramanayaka expressed his views during the debate on the second reading of the 2021 budget in Parliament yesterday.
If politicians voted into power by the innocent people loot public funds, they will never be considered as heroes. A hero never pillages the people. Mahindananda Aludgamage filed a complaint with the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption on what he called were the top 10 crimes in the country. I am on the side of those involved in catching culprits. But what has happened to the people involved in the so-called top 10 crimes? What is the progress of the investigations? I wish to question Rohita Abegunawardena whether it was our government which filed a case over his alleged unlawful acquisition of assets. It was filed under Mahinda Rajapaksa's government.
මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂලාගේ ආණ්ඩු කාලේ තමයි දැම්මේ. එතුමා නම් බේරුණා නායක ආවා කියලා මොකක්ද එකක් කියලා එතුමා පොඩි අනේ ලොක්කා නායකයා කියලා සමාවෙන්න මේ ලොක්කා මම යාළුවානේ ඩිස්ටර්බ් කරන්නේ මම පස්සේ කතා කරන්න. අපිට නඩු දැම්මේ මෙයා දුරකථනයෙන් බොහොම සුවදශීලීව අඬ ගහපු අර නෝනා. අර අඬ ගැහුවේ දුරකථනයෙන් එක්ක ෆ්‍රන්ට් සයිඩ් එක්ක බෑක් සයිඩ් අපි නඩුවට මූණ දෙනවා. මේක ෆ්‍රන්ට් සයිඩ් බෑක් සයිඩ් ප්‍රශ්නයක් නෙමෙයි. මේක අල්ලස්සෝ දූෂණ කොමිසමෙන් බෑක් සයිඩ් එකේ හැංගිලා ගිය ප්‍රශ්නයක්. තමුන්ගේ ලිංගික ජීවිතේ පෞද්ගලික ජීවිතේ.
This is a problem involving the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption. Do not drag private matters into bribery-related cases. Sexual allegations were leveled against Dilrukshi Vikramasinghe. Truth be told, she tried her best to catch the culprits. She accompanied investigators to Dubai. But did they help her out? International banks do not betray their account holders. When New York Times journalist Maria Abi Habib said that the Rajapaksa administration received funds from China for election finances, Mahinda Rajapaksa and Namal Rajapaksa said they will file a case against the New York Times. Have they done that? The international newspaper is waiting for the case. Why aren't they moving court? They won't do that because neither the Chinese who gave the money nor the person who solicited the funds will provide details on that. The government has appointed a presidential commission to investigate incidents of political victimization. They are trying to justify the cases through this commission and challenging to catch the culprits. There are recordings relating to these cases. The government was speaking about Dhammika Hemapala. Who is Dhammika Hemapala? He was the magistrate of Kaduwela. They say I met him at his residence with Carlo Fonseca. There is a court case on that. Who spoke to Dhammika Hemapala to save Yoshita and Basil? I wish to responsibly state that it was. I have telephone recordings. And Dhammika Hemapala were classmates. Therefore, who interfered with the judiciary? It was Theranas who visited Dhammika Hemapala's residence and spoke on behalf of Yoshita and Basil.
ගෙදරට ගිහිලා කිව්වේ යෝෂිතවයි බැසිල්ලයි බේරන්න කියලා මේකේ. මාළඟ තියෙනවා හඬ පාට ලොක්කට අඩුව තියෙනවා. දැන් ඔයා කියන්නේ මල්වාණගේ කාගේද ලොක්කා? නෑ නෑ මචං උඹ කියපන් සමාවෙන්න ලොක්කා. මල්වාණගේ කාගේද? මල් ඔව්. අල්ලන්න බෑනේ. අපි මහින්දයි රනිනු යාළුවෝනේ. අනේ සමාවෙන්න. ඉතින් අපි මේ විදියට මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ
If we try to tarnish the image of people who are not in parliament, that is a disrespect to the house. Can't come here and respond to these claims. Talk about these matters outside parliament. Speak against before media if you have the backbone to do that.
I respect you, but it was you who brought up the name of Dhammika Hemapala. He is also not a member of the house.
ඉතින් අහන් හිටිය නමුත් ඔබතුමා
Yes, I know, but you cannot drag Dhammika Hemapala's name as he cannot respond to any allegation in Parliament. Are you advocating for separate laws in the case of Dhammika Hemapala and...
The appointment of members to several commissions was discussed in Parliament today.
Based on the media reports that I came across last evening and this morning, I learnt that members to certain commissions have been appointed by the Parliamentary Council. I am not aware of this move, but I saw a list of members and their respective bodies. The public service commissions were also on the list.
තුමනි මේ නාමලේඛනයේ රාජ්‍ය සේවා කොමිසම යටතේ එක් නමක්
මේ කොමිෂන් ගැන සභාවේ කතා කරන්න බෑ.
මේ කොමිෂන් සභාවලට නම්පත්
A business tycoon who is involved with the company that has submitted a tender for the procurement of HIV test kits was also among those appointed to one of these commissions. When such individuals are appointed to the Public Services Commission, we cannot be guaranteed that there will be no form of influence on state officials.
වෙන්නේ නැtei කියලා අපිට කියන්න බෑ ගරු කතානායකතුමනි. එතකොට ඊට අමතරව ගරු කතානායකතුමනි පොඩ්ඩ දෙන්න.
ඒක මේ ගරු සභාවට කතා කරන්න පුළුවන්.
පොඩ්ඩ ගරු කතානායකතුමනි මම මේ කියන්නේ අපි අදහසක් ඉදිරිපත් කිරීමක් මම මේ යෝජනා නෙවෙයි. එතකොට ඊට අමතරව දැන් මේක පිළිබඳව දැන් අධිකරණයේ නියෝගයකුත් දීලා තියෙනවා මාධ්‍යට මේක වාර්තා කරන්නත් බෑ කියලා.
කරන්න එතුමාගේ කාර්ය අවසానයි. දැන් ප්‍රධාන වැඩ කටයුතු.
කොහොමද රාජ්‍ය සේවා කොමිෂන් සභාව කියන්නේ මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවෙන් පත් කරන කොමිසමක් නම් ඇයි මේක කතා කරන්න බැරි?
ඒක පත් කිරීමේ සම්පූර්ණ බලය තියෙන්නේ ජනාධිපතිවරයාට. බොහොම ස්තුතියි. හරි. හරි. විසර්ජන 50ක් කෙටුම්පත. හරි.
Views regarding media suppression were also expressed in Parliament today.
සමාජ මාධ්‍ය ක්‍රියාකාරීන් සම්බන්ධයෙන් අපරාධ පරීක්ෂණ දෙපාර්තමේන්තුව බොහෝම තදින් නීතියක් ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙනවා.
The Criminal Investigations Department is strictly enforcing the law against social media activists. The CID has launched investigations against social media activists Tilak Karyawasam, Chiranta Amarasinghe, Danushka Ramanayaka and hundreds more. Eureka De Silva, a former journalist at Sirasa and several other print media outlets, who is currently residing in Melbourne, is currently under investigation for sharing a Facebook post. The police media spokesperson on television has said that under the immigration and immigration law, officials at the airport have been informed to arrest her immediately upon her return to the country. We urge the government to refrain from suppressing the media and stop threatening and arresting media personnel. Recently, a group of CID officers had visited the temple of Most Venerable Panyaloke Madile Thero, a figure who supported the ruling party. They had attempted to forcefully record statements. At this point, the Venerable Thero had said, even after opposing and criticizing the Yahapalana government, the CID never visited my temple during their tenure. The Venerable Thero has said, when attempts were made to reveal the truth about the dealings between politicians and their friends, the CID pays a visit. Is this the government's policy of vistas of prosperity?
අපරාධ පරීක්ෂණ දෙපාර්තමේන්තුව උන්වහන්සේගේ පන්සලට ගියා. ගිහලා ප්‍රකාශ බලෙන් සටහන් කරගන්න හැදුවා. ඉන්පස්සේ උන්වහන්සේ ප්‍රකාශයක් කළා. "චර යහපාලනයේ සමග හැප්පිලා ඒ කාලේදීවත් CID එකෙන් මගේ පන්සලට ආවේ නැහැ. ඇමතිලා හා ගජමිතුරන්ගේ මගඩි හෙලි කළාම දැන් CID එකෙන් මගේ පන්සලට එනවා. මේකද සෞභාග්‍ය දැක්ම."
යම් කෙනෙක් අභූත චෝදනාවක් යම් කෙනෙකුට කරනවා නම් ඒ පිළිබඳව සොයා බැලීම වරදක්ද?
මම කියන්නේ හොයලා බලන එක වැරදි කියලා. හැබැයි මම කියන්නේ කොල්ලෝ කෙල්ලෝ සමාජ මාධ්‍ය ජාලවල හැසිරෙන හැටි දැක්කාම
සොයලා බැලීමේදී තේරුම් ගියේ සොයාගෙන තියෙන්නේ දැන් මේ කරුණ ස්වාමින් වහන්සේට වැරදි ඉපයක් දීලා තියෙන්නේ රජයේ නිලධාරියා. ඒ රජයේ නිලධාරියාට දඬුවම් කිරීමට නැත්නම් ඒ සඳහා අලාභයක් ඉල්ලීම සඳහා නඩු පවරන්න අවශ්‍ය තොරතුරු සොයාගන්න. මම හිතන්නේ කාටවත් මේක සාධාරණ විසඳුමක්.
Yesterday, Newsfirst reported that George Stewart Health Private Limited had obtained an ex parte enjoining order against MTV Channel Private Limited, preventing it from making public any defamatory content against George Stewart Health Private Limited and its chairman or key employees in a case filed with regard to the importation of rapid antigen test kits to Sri Lanka. However, it was only at 4 p.m. today that MTV Channel Private Limited received the letter of demand, which was meant to precede the action which was filed of record yesterday through a courier.
A group of more than 200 residents of the Mihidu Sempura housing complex in Dematogoda staged a protest today.
A group of residents of Section B of the Mihidusenpura housing scheme in Dematagoda took to the streets today claiming that the concessions granted to them during the lockdown are insufficient.
අපේ එළියට යන්න විදියක් නැහැ. අපිට ඒක එළිය අරන් දැම්මොත් අපි එළියට ගිහලා අපි අම්බෝරම් කනවා. අතර මාසයක් යනවා. රුපියල් 5000 මාසයක් කන්න පුළුවන්ද?
කොට එක ගෙදර ඉන්න පවුල් 5 දරුවෝ එක ෆැමිලි එකකට ඉන්නවා සර්. ඉතින් කී දෙනෙකුට කන්න දෙන්නද මිනිසුන්ට? අපිට කලේ රාජ අපරාධ අපි ඉන්න තැන් වල උන්න දුන්නා නම් අපි කොහොම හරි ජීවත් වෙනවා.
The Mihidusenpura housing complex accommodates more than 2,500 residents of 370 families. They claim that they have not received any relief and have been severely inconvenienced.
ලොක්ඩවුන් කරලා තියෙන යා පැත්තේ සියපත් සෙවණ කියන එක ලොක්ඩවුන් කරලා.
The Siapat 7 housing complex is also under lockdown. They have been provided with a hamper worth 10,000 rupees and all other facilities. Support us as well.
අපිට ලොක්ඩවුන් සමානයි. අපිටත් බඩුමල්ලු මොනාරි දෙන්න.
Subsequently, the OIC of the Mihidusenpura police station arrived at the scene. The protest, which lasted for more than an hour, ended after the protesters dispersed upon the promise made by the police OIC that a solution will be provided to their problems.
Opposition leader Sajid Premadasa raised questions in Parliament regarding the problems faced by residents of isolated areas.
How many families are residing in areas and housing complexes that are under isolation in the Colombo district? How many families have received the 5,000 rupee allowance and the food hampers worth 10,000 rupees? Declare the cost incurred for both these relief mechanisms separately. Does the government feel that a 5,000 rupee monthly allowance is sufficient for families that do not have a source of income? If not, does the government hope to increase this amount up to 20,000 rupees? If there is no plan to that effect, does the government hope to increase the allowance and what would be the increment? Families undergoing quarantine have claimed that the food hamper is not worth 10,000 rupees. For how long does the government feel that these areas would be kept under isolation? Several families outside the Colombo district have lost their livelihoods since their areas are under isolation. What are the measures implemented by the government to provide relief to these people? If the government has already provided relief, mention the expenditure and the number of beneficiaries separately based on each district.
ක්‍රියාමාර්ග කවරේද ජනතාවට සහන සැලසුවේ නම් එසේ සහන සැලසූ පවුල් සංඛ්‍යාව සහ වැය වූ මුදල් පිළිබඳව වෙන්වෙන්ව දිස්ත්‍රික්ක මට්ටමින් මෙම ගරු සභාවට ඉදිරිපත් කරන්නේද
අපි සිකුරාදා දිනේ සවිස්තරව මේ සම්බන්ධයෙන්
I will provide a comprehensive answer to these questions on Friday. Considering the current situation surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic, I request the opposition leader to avoid frightening the people.
කුලප්පු කරන්න නැතුව ඉන්න කියලා අපි විපක්ෂ නායකතුමාගෙන් ඉල්ලනවා.
We have not frightened the people. We vehemently oppose those allegations. However, I wish to state that the people have become upset over the conduct of the government.
දැන් මේ විපක්ෂ නායකතුමා 20000ක් 30000ක් දෙන්න ඕනි කියලා මැතිවරණ කාලෙත් කිව්වනේ. හැබැයි එතුමාගේ ප්‍රකාශ ජනතාව ප්‍රතික්ෂේප කරා.
මම ස්තුතිවන්ත
I wish to thank you for informing the 6.9 million people who voted for the government that an allowance of 20,000 rupees would not be granted despite the challenging circumstances.
මට ස්තුතිවන්ත වෙනවා
ඔබතුමා කියන
You are misinterpreting my statement. Do not politicize this matter.
එපා විපක්ෂ නායකතුමනි.
අපි මේක දේශපාලනීකරණය කරන්නේ නැහැ 5000කින්
We are not trying to politicize this matter. But can the people be content with a 5,000 rupee monthly allowance? A minister has said that the allowance should be used for a month. The government must act with empathy towards the people.
ඊට වැඩිය හිතක් පපුවක් ඇතිව හදවතක් ඇතිව මේ ජනතාවගේ මූණ දෙන්නේ කියලා ඉල්ලීමක් කරා.
ලංකාවේ පවුල් ලක්ෂ 57ක් ඉන්නවා.
There are 5.7 million families in Sri Lanka. And when we gave the 5,000 rupee allowance, more people started applying and the list went to 7.6 million families. For this purpose, we had to use 70 billion rupees. During this second wave overall, we have allocated 7 billion rupees to be distributed amongst 1.4 million families by now.
මේ මොහොතේ මේ වෙනකොට බිලියන 8කට ආසන්න මුදලක් වෙන් කරලා තියෙනවා.
The epidemiology unit of the health ministry said another 287 COVID-19 cases were identified today. 465 recovered COVID-19 patients are discharged from hospitals today. As at this evening, total recoveries were 14,962. The number of COVID-19 cases reported from the island reached 20,795 today. The number of active patients under medical supervision currently stands at 5,743. No deaths due to COVID-19 were reported so far today, while the total death toll due to the virus in the country stands at 90. 3 COVID-19 related deaths were reported yesterday. Among the deceased were 2 women.
Meanwhile, with the identification of a 4-year-old child who contracted COVID-19, 4 families in the Utupitiya village in the Ganewalpola area have been placed in quarantine. Our correspondent said the Bamanugama Muslim College, situated in close proximity to the residence of the child, has also been closed. The child was identified to have contracted COVID-19 following a PCR test conducted when the child was admitted to the Colombo National Hospital for surgery. Meanwhile, travel restrictions were imposed to the Telumbugahavatta village in Akurana since today morning after 39 COVID-19 patients were discovered in the area. Travel restrictions were also imposed to the empty area of Mahiyava in Kandy after the identification of 4 COVID-19 patients in the area. People entering the estates from the Halboda area on the Nuwarelia Kandy main road were subjected to PCR tests under a combined effort launched by the Kotmale MOH officers and the Pusellava police. Meanwhile, the main office of the Department of Motor Traffic in Narahempita was reopened today for public services. Accordingly, a large number of people arrived at the office but were inconvenienced by the lack of services.
They have displayed numbers to call, but when we call them, they do not respond. I came to get transfer papers for my vehicle. Seems like it won't happen. There is no procedure here. If a date is given to us from the gate, we will not be inconvenienced like this.
Meanwhile, a protest launched by nearly 15 inmates on top of the Angurukola Palace prison, opposing moves to bring in inmates from another prison for quarantine purposes, is continuing. Officers of several police stations, including Middaniya and Angurukola Palace, have been deployed for the security outside the prison.
At
this point, the inmates are trying to take advantage of the situation. What is happening through this is that the prisons are being put at risk again. Therefore, we are taking strong action in this regard.
Former President Maithripala Sirisena rejected a statement which was made claiming there should be a collective responsibility over the 2019 April terror attacks. The former head of state testified at the Presidential Commission of Inquiry appointed to probe the 2019 April 21st attacks today.
Former President Maithripala Sirisena was cross-examined by President's Counsel Shamil Pereira, appearing for His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit. The President's Counsel noted the former Prime Minister and the former Secretary of Defence had earlier told the Presidential Commission of Inquiry that the former government should bear collective responsibility over the attacks and questioned if Sirisena was prepared to accept it. Responding to the query, Maithripala Sirisena said he opposed to connecting him to the statement made on collective responsibility. At Tuesday's proceedings, an interview the former president had given to the BBC Sinhala service was made available. In the interview, a question was posed to the former president on the 2019 April attacks, and Sirisena had noted he does not accept responsibility for the attacks. Responding to a query made by the President's Counsel based on the content of the interview, former President Maithripala Sirisena said the journalist in the interview questioned him in a manner of a judge, whilst disregarding media ethics. He said the entire interview was edited and released and noted that he requested for the interview not be aired or broadcast. The former president said he gave such an answer in the interview based on the conduct of the journalist. Maithripala Sirisena said he worked closely with the Catholic community and personally worked to convert the premises of the Madhu Church into sacred grounds. He said he fully supported the call to construct a Catholic church in Polonnaruwa. Medical reports of Maithripala Sirisena dated the 20th and 21st of April 2019 from a Singapore hospital where he received treatment were produced to the Presidential Commission of Inquiry. The former president requested the reports be used only for the perusal of the commissioners as it is a personal matter, and this request was accepted.
A video of a woman being assaulted in an office is circulating on social media.
The caption related to this video, which is circulating on social media, stated that this incident took place at a government office in the Western province. It was stated that a high-ranking official of the office has assaulted an employee of the same office. However, the exact location of the attack has not been confirmed yet.
A tense situation arose at the Alawathugoda Public Cemetery in Akurana due to damages caused to the monuments of war heroes.
Families of war heroes have complained that the Akurana Pradesha Sabha has demolished monuments of their loved ones at the Alawathugoda Public Cemetery. Our correspondent reported that sand that has been removed to make way for a water project in Kandy has been dumped at the public cemetery.
මගේ තාත්තාගේ සොහන තමා මේක මෙතන භාගයක් වෙනකම් පස්පුරවල තිබ්බා. ප්‍රාදේශීය සභාවෙන් මේක ඩෝසර් කරලා මේවා කඩලා බිඳලා දාන්න ලෑස්ති. මේ වගේ රණ විරවන්න එහෙම කරන්න එපා කියලා අපි ජනාධිපතිතුමාගෙන් ඉල්ලනවා.
මගේ මහත්මයාගේ රණවිරු ස්මාරකයේ උඩින් ඩෝසරේ යවලා තිබ්බා. රණවිරුවන්ට තියෙන තැන මෙතනද. ඒ රණවිරුව කියන්නේ හොරපොල් කඩන්න ගිහලා ගහෙන් වැටුණු පිරිසක් නෙමෙයි.
The chairman of the Akurana Pradesha Sabha said that approval was granted to fill sand for development purposes at other sections of the cemetery. He denied claims that the monument of war heroes has been covered by mounds of sand. The monuments have not been covered in large mounds of earth. Prove that if you can. A monument was damaged while filling sand, but we repaired it within an hour.
දැන් මෙතනට පස් දාන්න ඔබතුමාද අවසර දුන්නේ.
මෙතන අපි මෙතන නෙවෙයි පස් දාන්න අවසර දුන්නේ. මොකද අපි මේක පිටිපසට තමයි පස් දාන්න අවසර දුන්නේ. ඒතකොට යට විශ්ව කොහොමද උඩ තියෙන්නේ? මේ මොනවද ඉතින්? ඕක මේ අරන් ගෙනෙද්ද අපේ. ඒක කඩලා කියලා කියන්නේ. ඕගොල්ලෝ කොහොමද එහෙම මේක දැන් පොළොවට උඩ තියෙනවා.
මගේ පුතාගේ සොහන මෙතන තිබ්බේ රණවිරුවගේ.
සොහන කුටියක් ගැටවලා තිබ්බොත් අපි ඒකේ යථාර්ථයේ තිබිච්ච විදියටම කවදා සකස් කළා දෙනවා ඉතින් අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම.
Meanwhile, the parents of the students of Mahinda Rajapaksa College in Matara staged a protest today against the transfer of their principal. The principal of the Mahinda Rajapaksa College in Matara has received a transfer upon her request. The parents said if the principal is to be transferred, a principal from the administrative section must be granted to the school. Although the new principal arrived at the school to assume duties today, she was obstructed from entering the school by the protesters. The police and the riot squad failed to disperse the protesters from blocking the road. The Matara District Superintendent of Police, who arrived at the location, discussed with the new principal and took steps to send the principal away. Thereafter, the protesters dispersed. Meanwhile, the Parisadahanda organization staged a protest in Nugegoda today. The protest was staged against the cancellation of the previously issued circular regarding the other state forests. We need a country to live. We need to protect the environment of this country. We are disappointed with the policies pursued by this government. If this doesn't change, we will have to take even larger actions against this.
Global tech giants Google, Facebook and Twitter, among others, have banded together and are threatening to leave Pakistan over the country's latest censorship laws.
The government of Prime Minister Imran Khan has granted enhanced powers to Pakistan media regulators. Under the new regulations, social media companies or internet service providers face a fine of up to $3.14 million for failure to curb the sharing of content deemed to be defamatory of Islam, promoting terrorism, hate speech, pornography, or any content deemed as endangering national security. The coalition said it was, quote, alarmed by the scope of Pakistan's new law targeting internet companies, as well as the government's opaque process by which these rules were developed, end quote.
New Delhi residents are struggling with the deteriorating air quality as they are exposed to harmful pollutants, with air quality dropping to the hazardous category today.
A thick blanket of smoke covered the skies of the Indian capital today as residents travelled with the headlights of their vehicles on to prevent any accident amid reduced visibility. In some areas, the buildings could be hardly seen with the thick smog hanging over the city. Residents who came out said they were having some difficulties due to pollution. Prolonged exposure to this quality of air can lead to burning of eyes, irritation in skin, and serious respiratory issues, sometimes leading to death. Later in the day, a downpour was experienced in Chennai.
And that's the wrap of this edition of Primetime News. For the Newsfirst team, I am Mazra Hassan with our sign language interpreter Brian D. Cruz joining us via Zoom. Thank you for joining us. Take very good care of yourself and good night.